with mice that have a gene variant that we know now that causes autism. And among the questions we are aiming to answer is how these mice respond to inflammatory insults, and mainly how this affects the brain and the behavior. Hi, my name is Angela. I'm a third-year PhD student at the Gut-Brain Axis Lab here at RMIT University in Melbourne. I'm from a state in Mexico called Oaxaca, and I moved to Mexico City when I was 15 years old to pursue better education opportunities. So I did the last 3 years of high school there in my bachelor's degree, where I had the opportunity to be part of the first cohort of the bachelor's degree in neuroscience at the National Autonomous University of Mexico. This program was planned and designed by professors and researchers in the field, and it was mainly focused on giving the students the tools to develop and to conduct research. So after I finished my bachelor's, I did an honors degree where I work in a project about malnutrition and neurodevelopment, and then that's where I first started to get into the gut-brain axis field, and where I first got interested because I started reading about the microbiota. So I knew I wanted to pursue a PhD, and I started looking for labs that had this research. So I found the Gut-Brain Axis Lab here at RMIT, and I applied for my PhD. And at the moment, RMIT was offering scholarships for Mexican applicants, and I was awarded with a Mexican RMIT International Scholarship Program. My project is focused on looking at the brain and behavior, and we work with mice that have a gene variant that we know now that causes autism. And among the questions we are aiming to answer is how these mice respond to inflammatory insults, and mainly how this affects the brain and the behavior. We're also looking at how the microbiota can influence the brain and behavior, and if this could potentially be a pathway through where we can develop new therapies for people with autism, especially for the ones that have higher care needs. Well, the Gut-Brain Axis Lab, we look at the brain, we look at the gut physiology, but we also look at the microbiota. And for that, we collaborate with other PhD students and professors at the La Trobe University. So we work and they look more closely to everything that has to do with the microbiota and the changes that we observe in our mice. I remember having talks with my mom. My mom is a psychologist, and I was really interested in all the things she could tell me about people and just behaviors, but I wanted to understand more about that, more in what happens in the brain, what is different between these people, and what the behaviors, does it has to do anything with that? So it really started there with those talks, and I just were more interesting, and I was asking more and more questions, and I guess it got to a point where I tried to look for the answers myself in a way. So I was just curious about the brain, and I just looked the way to keep studying and keep learning about it. I love painting. I grew up surrounded by art and photography, so I enjoy doing that. It's part of who I am. And baking is also one of my favorite hobbies, having a lab at home. And recently, just going out and nature and just going for walks and enjoying this, discovering what Australia has to give. So that's what I do.